Good evening, everyone, from Golf Zero Whiskey Uniform Romeo. It's my privilege to be able to welcome everybody to the Wednesday night net this week on the Extended Freedom Network. But before we start things off, first of all, let's check, is there any emergency or priority traffic? Emergency or priority traffic for the network? If there is, please call now. Okay, G0W, you are continuing. Right, nothing heard. So we will be clear to start the net. If at any time there is any issue, then please do to clear the network and render what assistance we can. I'll just take a bit. There we are. Right. Okay. And thank you there to the person that just gave me the tip that the audio level was a bit lower than it should be. Hopefully now that's cleared up. We'll see in a moment. Right. Said welcome everybody. It's lovely to have everyone here. We will of course be assuming the call sign of the Wednesday Night Net Radio Club, our virtual online radio club as it were. And of course, because I'm north of the border, up here in Scotland, we will for tonight be Mike Sierra 0, Whiskey November. That's MX0WNN for Wednesday Night Net. We are also using NetLogger, so you'll be able to follow along with any of the check-ins, or with the check-ins tonight, I should say, and avail yourself of the blue screen as well if you wish to do so. Our topic for this evening, we'll just take another pip. I must say thank you to my assist that is out there in amateur radio land, who's just been giving me the pointers as regards tweaking the audio level slightly. On the connection. Much appreciated, team. Right, as I was saying, the topic for this evening, we're kind of going a little bit, shall we say, retro, maybe. Origin stories for amateur radio. You know, we've all got them. We've all started somewhere. So I'm interested in seeing, you know, what is it that got us all started in the hobby? What was that first bit of inspiration? See done with maybe you know, in a working life, maybe some to do with communications, but also I'm interested, how long ago was it that everyone actually took up the first inklings of amateur radio? That could be an interesting one. Just by the call sign, can you actually guess how long somebody's been involved with with amateur radio? And then also, finally, I'd like to ask, because of course we want to encourage people to, of course, come along, get a license and get on air. So I'd like to know what experience, what memory, or what reason, could be any of these, would you be able to share that might encourage somebody to actually, you know, sort of go on, have a go, see about getting their license. Hopefully, some interesting things that we can talk about this evening. Right, so this is MS0WNN. And we'll open the list of check-ins for this evening. Please, when you're calling in, give me your call sign slowly, phonetically, and most importantly, twice, please, because that way, if anything gets clipped, I stand half a chance. If you also give me your name and location, that can be useful. Oh, and just before I forget, folks, remember the all-important 3-minute timeout. If you're getting near that one, please take a pause and then carry on. That's perfectly okay. And also, of course, it's very, very, very critical that we leave the gaps. We do need to leave a sort of 4 to 5 second gap because it's a multi-mode system with lots of links around the world. So we need to give everything a little time to reset, as it were. Otherwise, we end up timing bits of it out. There we are. Hi. Right, MS0WNN. Looking for my first check-ins.
Golf 7, Oscar Charlie Kilo. Golf 7, Oscar Charlie Kilo. Brian in the land of the Prince Bishops.
2, Echo 1, Golf Fox Lima. 2E1, GFL, Dennis.
Okay, MX0WNN. Good evening to two fine gentlemen there, Dennis, 2E1 GFL. I'm assuming you're back home these days, Dennis, or are you still out somewhere enjoying the boating life? You can let us know in a minute. And G7OCK, Brian, who was the mystery person, should we say, that was giving me my little audio critique at the start. Thank you, Brian. Much appreciated. Over to you then, G7OCK from MX0WNN.
Yeah, Roger on that, Gareth. Right, your audio is still a little bit on the hot side at times, mate, so turn it down just a little bit, but not too far. It's just peaking over the top every now and again. Just a warning, shall we say. Ooh, first started radio. Ooh, mid-early 70s, there or thereabouts. CB radio started us on the road to oblivion, shall we say. We'll put it that way. Actually started in amateur radio the first time in early 80s, and then went back to it in early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Actually passed the test exam in Q1, so that was my start with amateur radio from Golf 7 Oscar Charlie Kilo.
G7OCK from MS0WNN. Nearly gave you the wrong call sign then. Right. Now, you see, that's an interesting one there. Starting out with the CB radio. I think there's an awful lot of us that have had to start through, CB or maybe with MR stuff. Some people cringe when you mention CB, but hey, it served a purpose, didn't it, Brian? I know certainly CB radio was heavily used by my family back in the day. Between my grandparents' house, my home, and also my dad, he had a CB set in the car because he was out on the road a lot. So that was quite interesting, and so we kind of all got started on that vein as well. So, good stuff. And all copied in 1980s and 90s for the amateur radio side of things. Interesting. Back to you, Brian. G7OCK, MS0WNN.
Yeah, Roger. I think I had an interest long before the 70s actually in the CB radio, and I started with that. Actually, probably the first interest in radio as such was shortwave listening, much earlier than that. That was, shall we say, the first interest when I started actually picking a microphone up and operating. Long before CB radio in the UK became as popular as it was before it was, long before that. So I'm not going to dwell into the dim and distant past, shall we say. There wasn't many of us operating in the locality when I first started, but that was a long time since, and the majority of them actually did move on over time into amateur radio as such. There's still one or two of us about, but not many. And one or two who unfortunately are no longer with us, have all gone silent key now, but there's one or two still around. From Golf 7 Oscar Charlie Kilo.
MX0WNN returning. Yeah. It was an interesting hobby. And you're right, you know, a lot of people that I know of that were involved in CB, as you say, you know, quite a few did migrate into amateur radio. Some didn't. Some did. I know a couple of people have interests in it. You know, in one case, actually, it's a couple I know that still have an interest in, you know, sort of CB-esque communications, and it's quite ironic because the husband actually did get his amateur ticket, but his wife was absolutely dead against it. There was no way she was going to do the exam. So he kind of, should we say, foot in both camps. Always good fun. Right, Brian, you do so much now with sort of helping and encouraging of people, etc., getting them all on air and giving them the flavour of. So go on. I've got to find your thought on this one. Is there a particular experience, memory, or reason that you would have that you would share with someone to encourage them to have a crack at getting amateur radio license and then getting on air and pressing the proverbial PTT? Back to you, mate.
Yeah, Roger, my friend. Well, I think I've got to go back to one of the special event stations that we ran down here at a few years back. No, 2 years back. Was it 3 years? 2 years, certainly 2 years back. You, self, and Helen was there at the time. And I was actually at a school and we were operating the special event station. I was standing outside just having a minute, shall we say, at lunchtime in amongst the incident that was going on. And there was 2 or 3 of the young children that were there were saying about asking each other where they'd actually made a contact through. And one said, oh, well, it was or Whitney Way. So the one contacted somebody in, I believe it was Calgary at the time. And the other one turned around and says, well, and where did you get it? I only got somebody in Bishop, he says. It's not fair. He says, some people got all the best ones. And I thought, well, that's the nature of amateur radio. And the look on their faces was brilliant at the time. From Golf 7 or Charlie Kilo.
Now from MS0WNN. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember exactly which special event and school it was where that one happened. Because we did have a lot of good laughs with the kids on that one. That one in particular. Yes, and as you say, it shows the very nature of your radio. You know, that 1 minute you could be talking to somebody who's a stone's throw away from you. You know, next minute it could be, you know, somebody from thousands of miles away. Of course, now with all of the, should we say, internet-assisted propagation, the chances of that are even greater than normal. But I mean, even still with HF, you know, it's the way it works, isn't it? You know, when the bands open, oh boy, do they open. And it's quite spectacular. I always find it interesting looking at things like PSK Reporter and seeing where signals are coming from. And what's the term? Following the grey line. That's something I find interesting doing, especially when I'm playing FTA. But anyway, I digress. Cracking stuff there, Brian. So, well, let's see what other opportunities and more people. I know you're coming to the Allendale Agricultural Show, and yikes, that's getting close, isn't it? That's next week now. So it'll be interesting to see how we get on there, and if we manage to encourage anyone into having a go. That's the plan, at least, isn't it? Right. I wish you all the best for now, Brian. I'm going to pop down to Dennis, to E1GFL. How are you doing this week, Dennis? I hope you're doing well. And go on, tell me the origin over to you from MX0WNN.
One GFL returning. Well, very similar to Brian, my partner in crime. CB. A few of the lads years and years used to work for one of the local haulage firms, and they used to do what they called the pipeline run over to the Middle East. They were the first ones that would come back with a CB radio. Route, and I thought that'd be handy, so me and a pal of mine acquired a pair. And believe it or not, I mean, we'll go back a long time. I'll just take a pip. The antenna I acquired was very similar to a car antenna, and another one of the lads that I knocked around with had a radio in his Jeep that he used for his business. So I borrowed one of the stickers off it and stuck it in the back of my car so as not to get pulled quite regular, as you seemed to do at the time. So, and as I say, I went on with that. We had a club in Bishop Auckland, actually, that used to meet, well, in a hotel down by the river that's no longer there, and ended up on the committee for that, with one or two of the other lads that have now come into the amateur radio. Keith, I don't know whether you've met Keith. You've probably met him up the club. So that was how it started. Back round you, Gareth, net control from 2E1GFL.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they were big users of the CB radios and things, weren't they? This is I'm sort of bringing back all sorts of random memories now of being in the car with my dad, and especially if we were doing long runs, we always had the CB on, and among other things, you'd be hearing the various traffic reports or the notifications of certain types of vehicles with blue lights. I can't remember exactly what the analogies were, but you know what? On the safe side, I'm not going to attempt to remember anyway, because it probably cause more trouble than anything. But it's really good. I think that's where some things have been lost, haven't they? Really, with some of the, shall we say, modern applications that there are now for comms. I mean, I get on some sense why things have changed, especially within should we say the likes of haulage and stuff. But yeah, there was a place, wasn't there, for radio and that voice contact. Yeah, something sadly missing, but well, hopefully this is where encouraging people to use the hobby, especially given the license changes now. It's more welcoming than ever. There's certainly lots of opportunities to have a go, isn't there? Dennis, I'm waffling. I'll pass it back to you. 2E1GFL from MX0WNN.
You can waffle as much as you want. Just a quick... It's gone off. It was on before the net started. There was a couple of Geordies talking on it. and then it just went quiet. So I don't know whether that's connected or not. I've never looked on the dash. I'm coming through the sherry at the moment. Yes. Now, you know, we had loads of fun at the time. I recall as well. Forest. I was coming back down. A friend of ours has a pub up there, and I was coming back down one night. Hadn't been drinking, of course, and there was an accident just on a bad bend, and I stopped. Nobody had mobile. I got in touch with a couple that were obviously home base, who rang the police and an ambulance, and obviously there was another couple of the local lads listening in on the frequency, and all of a sudden half a dozen cars turned up to help out. These two that had the bump were absolutely amazed that all these people turned up out of nowhere, and then an ambulance turned up followed by a police car. So, you know, going back to those days, it did help, even without mobile phones. Back round you, Gareth, from 2E1GFL.
Yeah, 2E1GFL, MX0WNN. Yeah, you raise a really good point there. Yes, with mobile phones, pre the advent of that, being able to call for help with radio, yeah, it was a big one. And I would say, still in some semblances, even now, there's very much an application for it, isn't there? I suppose there's sort of an unusual, maybe, argument from somebody with my, should we say, interest in all things technology. You know, datacomms, mobile internet, you name it, all that kind of stuff I'm really into. But the point of it is, there's a lot to be said for going, inverted commas, old school. I think sometimes, as a society, we're a little bit too dependent on some of our creature comfort technology, shall we say. Now, on what was a YouTube channel, actually, I was listening to it over the last couple of days, talking about for example, the change now that's being brought about in the UK with our telephone network. The fact that it's all going voice over internet, voice over IP protocol, and of course, the problem of what happens if there's a power cut. Now, this is something I know you and Brian know all too well from your part of the UK, when you get these elongated power cuts. So, yeah, will the phone systems and the mobile phone masts keep working? If not, what's the plan B? Suddenly, amateur radio becomes rather useful again, doesn't it? So, yeah, definitely always worth packing a handheld. Back to you, Dennis, from MX0WNN.
GFL returning. Well, just what happened the other week. You know, somebody did an update, and people stuck all over the world. The bank stopped working, the cash machine stopped working. You know, as you say, suck it and see. It doesn't take much to bring things to a standstill, does it? Where in the olden days, when you had a till, or you wrote things down, I'm not going back as far as an abacus, but pocket calculators, etc. We got by. It doesn't take much now to bring everything to a standstill, does it? Background unit control from 2E1GFL.
Yeah, very true, Dennis. Sometimes the technology can be a bit like a house of cards, isn't it? You know, there is that was one of the things that was in this video that I was watching. You see, they were talking about how Well, I mean, you can go back as far as it being a telegraph, and then up through the how it was all. Now, let me get the terminology right. It was a circuit switching network. So it switched a physical copper pair between you and the destination, and as such, incredibly resilient. And if something came along and cut a cable, you generally got one circuit that goes, or maybe a couple. But these days, with all of the fibre optic stuff, I mean, you snap one fibre optic cable and you can pretty much take out a whole town if you do it in the right place. So, yeah, I think amateur radio's definitely got a place in the modern world, even more so. Yeah. Anyway, good chatting to you, Dennis. Thank you for joining me with the net this evening, and obviously look forward to seeing you at Allendale next week. That's going to be fun. Well, I know it's going to be fun because I'm bringing a Helen with me, so chaos will reign. Right, speak to you soon, Dennis. For now, that's the bottom of the first list. So, who else would like to join in with tonight's Wednesday Night Net? Please, your call sign, slowly, phonetically, and twice. Oh dear. Proverbial case of the crickets. These things do happen. Now, I suppose the other one is, I do know the Olympics are on, which is actually one of the reasons that my Helen's not on air with me at the moment, because she's downstairs watching it. So there's probably a lot of interesting things going on, and I'll have to have a look at it myself later. But let's see. Is there anyone that would like to join me on the Wednesday Night Net for 7th of August? Already, good grief, time flies. This is MX0WNN standing by.
Seven Oscar Charlie Kilo for a recheck.
Yep, go ahead, Brian, and thank you for the recheck. Much appreciated. It was getting lonely there.
Yeah, Roger Gareth. Well, it's just a reminder from Dennis when he was saying about assisting people. In years gone by, we used to do these assistance with the CBs. We used to do a walk from, what they call the walk now, Weir Valley Weir Walk, which was 20 odd miles from Killip all the way down to Wellington. It followed basically the Weir Valley Council area, and they used to do this weird safety coverage using CBs, being as there was no mobile phone coverage at the time from one end to the other end, and we used to use a CB system to do that as well. So that was prior to us getting involved with amateur radio, but we used to do it then from Golf 7 Oscar Charlie Kilo.
So sort of almost the CB equivalent of some of the RayNet comms that you now do, and that's really interesting actually. And it's nice to know what sort of things were done, because I mean a lot of things that it's inspired progress and sort of other plans going forward from that. So that's interesting. First time I've heard of that being done myself personally. But yeah, that sounds really good. I suppose that's one of the things, isn't it? It's actually quite useful as a I'm going to use the phrase public service. Forgive me if that's not entirely correct terminology, but let's term it in all its various. Radio communications can actually provide useful services for a range of different types of activity. And yeah, as you say, one of the things is it can, work through terrain when maybe other signals or, now things like mobile phone technology just doesn't quite cut it. Interesting. G70CK from MX0WNN.
Yeah, Roger on that, Gareth. Yes, it sometimes does. We're actually working on a system there now within the area where we live. We're in the process of setting it up. It's not quite finished yet, but it's getting there slowly, a little bit at a time. Due to Storm Arwen that went through a couple of years back there now and caused a lot of damage and power outages around the area. The local council, county council, has started to get their act together eventually with emergency comms and this, that, and the other for emergency communications. And what we have now done is they have decided we applied for a grant and got it for a large generator at the community centre where the club is based, to operate as a warm power outages, and we will be then able to use one of the repeaters, all of the repeaters for emergency communications, just in case, being as we're going to have electricity there, basically, as long as we don't run out of fuel to run the generator on from Golf 7 or Charlie Kilo.
From MS0WNN. Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm glad that project's going ahead. I remember you telling me about that some time ago. But yeah, these things do take a while, don't they? And that's superb. I'm glad that's coming together. Interesting one, yeah, being able to use the hall as both a warm hub and then also being able to have the repeaters there as backup comms. Yeah, power exempt. Actually, that also gives me another idea. Brian, when I see you next week, remind me to tell you a couple of ideas that I've had as regards uninterruptible power supplies as well, because it was something that's been going through my head for a while on that one. Anyway, back to the present. Yeah, that would be really interesting. And then, yes, the repeaters as the being able to run off of backup power. That will be quite good. Certainly give quite a substantial coverage, I suppose. Then, I mean, if you had amateurs then with mobile setups as well, I suppose you'd actually get some quite fair reach across the county. You 2E1 GFL. Yeah, go ahead, Dennis. Your thoughts?
Turn the SIP down. I have a 2 kV, 2.5 kV generator. Would it be any use up at the shore?
Oh, that's an interesting thought. I will come back to you on to get a chance to touch base with Bruce and just confirm what the details are for what we're doing. I'm not quite sure whether or not we're just running amateur radio as sort of demonstration purposes, or if we're also possibly assisting with site comms as well. So there's a couple of things I need to clarify, but I'll get that done, and I'll let you know as regards the generator. That might be useful. We'll see what happens. Thank you for letting us know about that one, Dennis. Back to you.
No problem, Gareth. As I say, it's just sitting doing nothing. If we do have power cuts, I use it for running the house. And the son and daughter-in-law live next door. It's handy. It'll run the TV, the heating system. Sometimes if you've got a lot on and you're trying to boil a kettle, it tends to judder a bit, but it does what it's supposed to.
Great minds think alike there, Dennis. You know, I've got exactly the same setup here. I rigged it up a few years ago. In my case, I've got a 7 kVA generator. Lovely thing that it is. I really should give it more work to do. But yeah, the idea is it'll run the house. In our case, the electrics on our house were set up that we can actually do a complete switch over from grid to auxiliary. So it will actually run the entire building, which is quite cool. And yeah, we've also got it set so that in the event of there being a power outage, we can also then supply power to our next door neighbour for the important thing, the fridge freezers. So that way, you know, all the food stays good at least. You never know when these things are going to come in handy, do you, Dennis? 2E1GFL MX0WNN.
It's come in handy. It's been off for long terms, winter times, and as Brian was saying, when the strong winds come through, it's just a matter of flicking a switch, plugging it in, so it isolates it from the Northern Electric circuits. It is done correctly. Obviously, I wouldn't want anybody working on the circuits to get a bat off it. Right, we'll see if Brian's back from 2E1GFL.
I'm back, no problem whatsoever. I did lose communications at one point there, but I believe I'm back up and Golf 7.
Yes, you are back, Brian. No problem at all. Yeah, not sure quite what happened, but it just seemed to drop out for you. Anyway, you're back again now. I was just talking to Dennis there about the fact that I've done much the same as him. That the generator with the ability to run the house off of it, if need be, you know, in case there's any long duration power cuts. Touch wood, up in Stirling, we're actually been pretty blessed with it in more recent years. When I first moved up here, we had several protracted power cuts, and that was quite interesting because I discovered the joys of, you know, having a central heating system that's run by gas, but with no electricity, it won't run. Or the other one that I had was trying to make myself dinner one evening, and I thought to myself, it doesn't matter that I've got a power cut, you know, because my cooking is all electric. Sorry, cooking was all gas, apologies, which it was, except, of course, the igniter for the gas hob needed power, and I didn't have any. And I also didn't back then have a box of matches in the house either. Should we say I learnt my lesson? Hi. Over to you, Brian. G70CK, MS0WNN.
Yeah, Roger on that, Gareth. Well, actually, I can remember, and Dennis will as well. It's not that long since we actually lost the gas on this area for about 5 days, I think it was. Somebody managed to put a JCB through the main gas pipe, and nobody in the area even had gas, and everybody was running off electric then, to the extent they've actually came round to the houses and give everybody. It wouldn't help if you were cooking with it, like, but that's what happened from Golf 7, Oscar Charlie Kilo.
Oh, wowzer. MX0WNN. Yeah, JCB meets gas main. Ooh, that's going to be expensive. Crumbs, yeah, that's pretty major. I must admit, that's the one thing I reckon in my area where we're now starting to run a risk of interruptions to power supply is we've got a lot of additional buildings being done. There is one particular housing estate that's within about 3 miles of me, and it's a huge new construction build, absolutely massive. And of course, you know, it's fine, but all these new buildings and stuff, they all want power, don't they? But the main infrastructure of the grid hasn't exactly been upgraded. So, you know, sooner or later, it comes back and bites you, doesn't it? You know, is there potentially not the resiliency or headroom that maybe there once was? So, yeah, certainly I know the last couple of power cuts we've had have been due to such construction works, and I do believe in one case it was because a JCB dug something up that it shouldn't have done. I think that was the cause of the most recent one. So there we go. Right, let's just put a quick shout out here. See, is there anybody else that wants to join us on the Wednesday night net tonight? If there is, please call in now with your call sign phonetically and twice, please. Okie dokie, chaps. Right. Oh, really unusual that it's so quiet tonight. I'm not going to worry about it. These things happen. And as I say, I think a lot of people are probably off watching the Olympics. I'm just having a look at my screen here. What's on at the moment? I've got to get this right for timing. Oh, where are we? Now about 2000 hours. Right. Oh, yeah. The athletics on currently and beach volleyball. Right. Okay. That might explain where everybody's running off to. Right. I'll just put it down to Dennis for any final comments, Dennis, for this week. 2E1 GFL from MX0WNN.
Volleyball. That's probably why there's no one on the radio. You know, I had to stop myself laughing there when I keyed the mic up, but that was definitely a good one. Yeah, as Brian said, it caused a heck of a lot of damage, and when it did go through, it had sent a load of dust and muck through the system, and it cost the local, well, whoever did it, I surmise, the insurance would have had to pay. There was lots of people, if the central heating was on, the boilers got dust and muck, etc. into them, and lots of people had to get new boilers or the boilers serviced to get it to work again. Back round to you, net control from 2E1 GFL.
Ah, yes, the proverbial when you break the pipe. Yes, stuff doesn't necessarily just come out, stuff also falls in. Yeah, ooh, crumbs. That could have been horrendously expensive. Yeah, I dread to think what the numbers could go through. I mean, boilers and stuff, they're not exactly large, are they? So slightest it's going to, cause all sorts of trouble. Yeah. I wonder, how exactly do you write your CV up after being responsible for such an event? Carefully. All right, interesting stuff, Dennis. Thankfully, not something that happens too often, but when it does, it does. I know I've seen the results of things where they've gone through power lines. Obviously, that can cause a fair amount of damage, but I do remember one incident. It was on an industrial estate, and they went through a power line, or rather, it was a crane that was doing some work, and they had its feet go, sort of being set down before it started moving this load around. And unfortunately, where they, should we say, propped the crane, it meant that it collapsed an underground duct, which people had forgotten to tell anyone that it was there. And anyway, it was a utilities duct, and it went through power lines. But what I remember about it is that when it went through the cables, it effectively created a crossphase scenario. So, you ended up with a lot more volts than you should normally have going through all of the estate. That was expensive. I remember placing a couple of servers on that job. And, they were extra crispy, should we say. Right, I'll pass it to Brian. Yes, Brian. I nearly got that wrong. That's terrible. G7OCK, I'll pass it back to you if you've got any final remarks for tonight's net.
Yeah, Roger on that one, Gareth. Well, you're on about power lines. I can remember when my father was working for Durham County Council for road construction, they actually came across a power cable when they were doing the roads, and they got the all out, and they said, it's a dead cable. There's nothing connected to it, nothing whatsoever. The nearest cable's 500 yards away, or whatever it was. There's no cables anywhere near here. It must be just a dead cable. It's been left as a supply into what used to be the old works. Put a JCB on it or something and pull it out and scrap it off. So they did. They dropped all the power supply to the whole industrial estate from Golf 7 Oscar Charlie Kilo.
Oh my word. Oh, crumbs. And especially they've been told by the relevant utilities, just pull it out, it's not in use. Oh, crumbs. Yeah. And that one definitely gets chalked up there as disasters that could be avoided. Mind you, it's still surprising to this day. The drawings for where some of the utility stuff is not exactly accurate. We had that experience a couple of years ago here in Stirling, or at least in our bit of Stirling specifically. They had to replace the gas main. So, of course, they had to come digging up find where the gas main was, and obviously the junction point, then going to each individual property, because all of that had to get renewed. And I remember the size and the number of holes that they were digging in our back garden, because said gas main, according to the drawings, was in one place, and in reality it was somewhere rather different. Rather different and somewhat problematic, actually. But anyway, these are good things. Right, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on the net tonight. Nice chatting to you both, and interesting swapping some tales. I will call it a day at this point then, because I'm going to disappear off and watch the Olympics myself. So there we are. So this has been MX0WNN, the Wednesday Night Net. We'll look forward to catching up with everybody next week. I'll come up with a topic with a little bit more advanced notification than there was for this week's one. And we'll look forward to speaking to you. Call sign reverts my own call, Golf Zero Whiskey Uniform Radio. And just thank you to everyone for listening in tonight, and for Brian and Dennis for the music stories and tales of adventure. Right, 73s everyone. Speak to you all soon. This is G0WNN, off and clear.